All right. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Good morning to the folks out on the West Coast, and thanks for joining us today. I'm excited to talk to you all about technology procurement, one of the most exciting topics that you could possibly cover. But in a lot of ways, it is a very I won't say fun, but it can be fulfilling in some ways to go through this process kind of as it's laid out, just because it will help you really develop an understanding of your operations and the systems that you have, and also kind of the day-to-day experiences of your staff and your passengers that will make a huge difference in being able to procure technology better and more effectively. I'll give you a disclaimer now that it is most certainly not a magical here's what to write and you'll get what you want, but at the very least, doing some upfront work will get you pretty close or will get you closer to the best tools that are available for the price that you can afford and kind of as close as possible balance out all of the different factors that go into getting a new technology. So, uh, with all that in mind, we're going to focus on strategies. And this is important. If you, it's important to focus on the strategy and the approach and kind of the framework that you use for getting new technology. The days of procuring rolling stock do not quite match up with how technology has started to evolve. And as a result, there's kind of a new way to approach how you go about this. And so the idea here is to give you the overarching approach to how to start tackling this kind of work. And a lot of this is based off of resources that exist on the CCAM-TAC website and also on the website for the National Center for Applied Transit Technology. NCAT is another FTA-funded technical assistance center. It is currently paused, but the website and its resources are still available. So we really want to make sure that information is that people know that information is out there and are engaging with that information. There's a lot of great stuff on there, if I do say so myself, as the director of NCAT when it's running. So Jane will put a few links into the chat as we go through. I'll reference a lot of NCAT resources, but there will be uh, a lot more that you can dive into that this whole webinar is based off of. And so the concepts in this were developed by Kevin Chambers at Full Path, and he's done a lot of work for NCAT and also for CCAM-TAC. And then also there's a lot of work that was put together for the California Integrated uh, Transportation Project. And so kind of between the groups that put all of that together, they have helped us really generate a framework that we're using to push a lot of the industry in a more effective procurement direction. So, tech procurement, it's nice and easy and 8 steps, and you've got yourself a new software, new fair payment system, etc. So, once we get through this, you'll be good to go. Uh, And we keep joking through the preparation emails, and you'll see this kind of throughout these slides. It's there's a lot of work that goes into procurement generally, but then also making sure that you have crafted a procurement that is going to get you close to what you want. And again, nothing will be perfect, but as long as you're getting closer to your goals, then that's the hope here. And to be able to do that, you have to start well before the actual procurement. So we're talking about pre-procurement. And then also, once you have created the framework and crafted what you're looking for, then you can set up the procurement and then finally execute it. So, um, yeah, then after procurement, there's the implementation and all of that. So you're still not done once you have your new technology, but we're going to focus a lot on those early steps before you have even started to write the actual RFP that you're putting together. And so, um, from the very beginning, you want to make sure that you are including everyone that this will affect. And this is incredibly important because if you don't include your staff, so your drivers, your dispatchers, and then also if you don't include your passengers, if this is a technology that will be out in the public, such as a tracking app or a fare payment app, anything like that, then there won't be buy-in, and then you run a pretty big risk of possibly missing on what the best, technology or best solution is that you are working towards, or there won't be buy-in, and people will think that you're just kind of maybe moving on without them, trying to replace them, um, or just imposing new things on people as opposed to trying to address the problems that they face. And so very importantly, to set the whole stage at the beginning, you want to make sure you have all the relevant stakeholders in the room as you start to plan all of this out. And as I mentioned, this takes a lot of work up front, but it will pay off down the road. So also, this goes back to one of the questions that I received, and so it was from Gary wondering about how you document lessons learned when you are after you've implemented a new technology, start here. And so if you start building the culture around the process from the very beginning, then again, you have that buy-in, but then also you've developed that culture of feedback and iteration and people really understanding what challenges are being tackled and why and how and what the priorities are. And so then this way you have all of those perspectives from the start. And so then once you get to your lessons learned, you can then look back and do like a postmortem or however else you would like to describe that and see how the outcomes correlate with what you were hoping to accomplish at the very beginning. So if you have people uh, going with you through this whole process, that will give you a much richer way of documenting your lessons learned. And so, specifically that will depend on who's involved in the process. But this overall idea of including everyone and putting together your thoughts and your priorities will get you a lot closer, and you can see the whole trail of these ideas. So, and then, so to start off, you got to identify your pain points. Why are you even procuring a new technology? What is the problem? And then there are a number of, or there are a few kind of categories of pain points that you can start to tackle. So, you have your practical, simply what is the problem? How often do you encounter it? What happens when this problem occurs? So, if it is, say your internet keeps going out and it's annoying, but everything keeps running. That is one factor versus if you have one internet line and all of your scheduling and dispatching is dependent on your internet working, and your buses will not have any information going out to them. They won't know who their next stops are. If your internet gets cut, then that's a whole different problem. So those are very practical things that you need to understand about what you're trying to address. Also, emotional. So, any problems that people run into are they definitely affect how people feel. Are they affecting morale generally? Are they fomenting a rebellion against management? Are they causing the community to not trust the agency? So depending on what the challenge you're facing is, what how is this all happening, and or how is this affecting the staff and the passengers and relationships, across all of these different factions. Or sorry, not factions, because everyone should be working together, all these different actors. And so then also organizationally, um, are there processes such as procurement rules or anything, any laws or other organizational components that might affect how you make a decision, what kind of solution you are able to, um, what kind of solution you're able to get to, anything like that. Also, very importantly, is at this point, you are just making observations. Do not try to jump to solutions yet. So, one thing that we run into a lot of the time with our technical assistants is people have identified a problem generally, such as they don't like the interface of their scheduling dispatching system, or they find it unreliable in a lot of ways. And so then they come to us saying, we need a new scheduling and dispatching software. What do we get? Versus we really slow people down. It annoys them a lot, but it works. And we really walk them through what the specific problems are and the specific pain points and how they affect the work that people are doing. And this is important because um, you could hate your scheduling and dispatching software, but it could still be the least bad option that's out there for you. Uh, not making a change is also a decision. So based off of your, the costs of switching to a new provider or anything like that, those are all important factors that come into this. So we really make sure to have people outline the problems that they're facing and the effects of those problems. So next up, you take these pain points, such as the internet, um, the internet keeps going out on us, and turn them into a problem statement. And so a problem statement is related to your mission, but again, it's not prescriptive. So you, um, so you're trying to identify the actual hiccup that you are facing as opposed to what's causing it. So in this case, using pencil, and paper for demand response scheduling, you're you've kind of identified the solution that you're hoping to tackle versus in a problem statement that is a little better thought out. If you talk about dispatchers can't easily communicate schedule changes to operators and the pickup and drop off times aren't reliable, you have not, you're focusing just on the what and not the why. And so this really helps you to kind of strip out kind of all of your assumptions and your um, biases of toward your cognitive biases around what you think will work and making sure you're really, really focusing on the problem and then building up on top of that. So, so again, Gary asked a lot of questions, so thank you. But he had kind of asked about a framework that helps to determine when to keep a software or to get a new one. This is kind of the foundation of doing that is with your pain points and then your problem statements, you can start to focus in on what parts of your software perhaps are actual problems and and then therefore and as we get into solutions, then are there things that you can tackle using your existing software versus what simply can't be addressed with what we have? And in order to accomplish our goals, we need to get something new. So, so again, you're kind of starting here way before your actual procurement, and it will really help you, um, you know, identify and illuminate different questions like this. And so from these problem statements, you need to rank and prioritize the problems that you want to address. Unfortunately, you cannot tackle everything, at least not at once. And so you will really have to come up with the um, priorities that you want to cover, and therefore which things you need to focus on first. So, there's this matrix that again FullPath came up with as far as the probability of something happening and also the impact that it has. So, you know, a misspelled pickup address does not affect operations too much. It's unlikely to happen, especially if you have a autofill kind of software. There is also, a lot of folks in rural areas deal with dead zones in their cell phone network. A lot of them are very good at working around those. So while they're annoying, your operations largely continue as planned. However, if you have unplanned staff turnover, such as a shortage of drivers, you might say, then that really impacts your operations. If you don't have drivers, you can't um, make as many trips as you need to do or as the demand demands. And so that could be one of the problems that you start to tackle first. And so then after you have at least started to address that problem, you can work down your impact or your probability issues, such as the dispatchers not being able to communicate changes. So this also helps you point at or find out if maybe you think you have a tech problem, but you might have a staffing problem or just as far as staff availability, or you could have a problem where if you have a lot of no-shows among passengers, is it something in your control, or is it a whole socioeconomic problem? But also, are there policies that you could change to encourage fewer no-shows? And so this way you can start to really pick all of that out. And so this gives you a lot of structure to help you define all of these issues that you face. And then you have, sorry, my notes are behind my computer monitor. So anyway, yeah, this helps you to surface a lot of the specific challenges that you're trying to address. So take a deep breath as you go through this. It can give you a little bit of therapy, give everyone a little chance to vent even. There's a group that I work with on technology procurement where a lot of the meeting is them kind of venting their frustration about procurement rules, and that alone just helps them kind of get through it. And then eventually they start to identify some possible solutions. So again, this helps people really buy in together into the process of getting something new. And this seems like a perfect time to have seen Jane come off or open her video up. So,
Yeah,
hello.
there's a question. Is there an existing template for the risk exercise? And is
Uh, yes. So we can send that out in the email afterwards.
okay, that's not one of the links you gave me.
Correct. There is not one like on our website, but it's very easy to put together that
Okay.
will send it out.
Okay, we will get that out to you. Thanks for the question.
All right. Any others before I keep going? All righty. Um, so now that you have kind of um, unloaded all of your baggage as far as your technology or other issues that you're running into, now you really want to focus on um, what's next and start looking for your solutions. And so again, and as someone who runs the Technology Technical Assistance Center, we first start off with looking beyond technology. So this is a lot of text here, but the I really wanted to drive home that kind of getting more technology or more complex technology can is much more of a lift. And so depending on what you're trying to address, you might not need, such a push for an intervention. But at some point, if you've kind of really gone through these exercises, this can really help you feel confident in the need for a new technology. So also, ask a lot of questions as you start this kind of solution phase. And so ask your peers. A lot of the folks that you know in the industry, unfortunately and fortunately, have probably faced very similar challenges that you have. So have people tackled it. A number of folks that I know have visited dozens of other symptom or not symptoms systems to learn how they did anything from building a bus barn and navigated different regulatory issues to just getting a demo for how they have implemented a microtransit system. So working with your peers, asking them questions, looking at what they did will do will do you a huge favor, and also ask them what they would do differently. So that way, every agency can build on the learning from previous agencies. So then, ask strategic questions of your vendors before the procurement opens, and I'll get a little more into that. And then also ask technical assistance centers, CCAM-TAC, NCAT, National RTAP, your state DOT if they're able to share anything with you. So there are a lot of resources for technical assistance. And then also, um, we love the idea of requests for information. And so it's not quite an RFP. And I know there are lots of rules and they can depend on states and different localities, but in general, hopefully an RFI can is a pre-formal procurement. And so therefore, hopefully you can get some answers to questions that you have about how different technologies work. And it's not necessarily just vendors who would respond to RFIs. Your peers or other entities might also respond. So this can give you a lot of information before you start your procurement. Um, so as you start to move forward, you want to make sure you understand what success is. So you want to build your performance measures now, again, before you have your procurement written. And this way, this will help you write it, help you know what you're asking for. And so what's your baseline? How bad is the problem? How will you know somewhat soon if this implementation is affecting the problem? And then farther down the line, 6 months, 1 year later, how do you compare to your baseline? And has the problem improved or not? And and this will be a way for you to measure your success. And so then also um, make sure you understand the cost of maintaining your system. So as I mentioned, after you procure and implement, that's not the end. You still have to run this new technology, sort of like have your rolling stock. It requires constant maintenance and checking up on, and in a lot of ways, making sure that it is keeping up with what you need. And so there's a whole life cycle of keeping your software running and addressing your challenges, just like any other piece of equipment that you would have. And so from here, you want to take your problem statements, and I forgot to mention one of the NCAT resources that we have is a transit stack diagram. And so the pain points, it's one way of helping you map out the different pain points that you might have. So I'm happy to answer more questions about that later. And then also have your priorities, your needs and solutions. So what you want to tackle first, what can wait, your baseline performance measures, and then a realistic sense of what you can maintain. So that way, in a lot of ways, a new tech procurement does not save you time or money. It redistributes it in your agency. So make sure you know about the resources that you'll need to keep things moving. So with that, you have procured something new. Just kidding. Sorry. That was just the pre-procurement. And so now, as you start to write out your procurement, you need to keep building on what we've done so far. And so I've mentioned the goals that you're trying to tackle. And so this is where you start to really articulate those. So you have your problem, a solution to the problem, and so this is how you can communicate this to potential vendors. So automatic passenger counters, for example. Um, what do you want the passenger counter to do? Do you want it to, are you trying to get it for reporting, for analyzing your ridership for service planning? Is this for real-time information for your passengers? So again, by being able to articulate all of this, then vendors know what you're looking for, and then therefore they know how to tailor their response. And that way, when the expectations are set ahead of time, you're much more likely to be able to work together. And so then also, there are a lot of products out there, and we have tried many times to come up with a list of what's out there just to be able to keep track, but they keep changing, and a lot of the features of these systems can sound very, very similar, but they might have slight differences that affect how they perform and what they can do for any particular agency. And so a way to tackle the shifting ground and all the different very nuanced differences of different softwares is to have this requirements table. So there are certain things that need to be done one way, and for your operations and your program to work, and so that is required, and vendor that responds must be able to do it that way. Essential is a an outcome that you're looking for, but the vendor can propose how they go about it. And then desired is a feature that's nice to have. So say you're focused on scheduling and dispatching, and you have your required and essential components, and if a vendor can provide self-booking for passengers, awesome, but you don't need them to be able to do that. And so these are kind of different ways uh, of laying out what you're looking for to vendors. And then also, when you do this, you want to make sure you ask for the all-in price or you want to make sure you ask for the cost of everything that is in the bid, as opposed to, and if possible, have them segment it out by your required, your essential, and your desired. Um, So that way you have a better way of comparing apples to apples. And then also, this is a real thing that we've started pushing is requiring open data standards wherever possible. And this is something else that we can get into more, but also the NCAT website has a couple of fact sheets on data standards, both with data interoperability and kind of data ownership. And so this way, it really helps you understand this kind of growing world of data ownership and how you can, you know, take possession of it, or not take possession of it, but ensure and kind of future-proof your operations if you ever have to change vendors or as you determine you need to add more technologies in. This way you can start to build out an ecosystem where everything talks to each other and you're able to move information around more easily. So, as I mentioned, this is a kind of future-proofing approach. And as you put out your procurement, you want to really focus on being able to integrate your software with others and make sure that it can be compatible with different types of technology for different parts of your operations. And really make sure that vendors can provide this for you. And there's, of course, balancing act, but in general, um, push for open standards as much as possible. And then really focus on your data ownership. So in particular, how often you can query or export or download your own data. So this is your operations. And so, we've gotten a peek under the hood of a few softwares where the reports are nonsensical, essentially. And then also there are others where people have to ask the vendor to generate a report for them. That is ridiculous. So make sure that you are able to query your data and export it and use it. Um, Again, these are public dollars going into this, so the public agency should be able to own own information. And so we can get real into that as well. And there are performance metrics that are somewhat standard or widely agreed to. And those, again, are trade-offs based on how rigid you want to be with them. But those can help you uh, narrow down the window to the kind of product you want. So now you can start your procurement. And so there will always be questions from vendors. And so if you put the expectation in your procurement, and again, procurement rules vary across different states and different localities, but if you create dialogue points for your procurement, this can help you communicate with vendors for what you're looking for. First is the RFI or market sounding, so going out and asking about products before you start a procurement. And then also there is setting up the opportunity for interviews with vendors so you can clarify product offerings. And again, you have to include it as part of the evaluation process beforehand. And then also, the classic giving a chance for vendors to ask clarifying questions and answering them publicly. And so, um, and so the with Gary again had asked about different types of technologies that are out there, but so, there are advancements with onboard camera systems, AI, video analytics. And so, what are the best ways to consider these technologies on improving safety while balancing privacy concerns and long-term operating costs? Kind of this slide here, your performance metrics and your data ownership and all of that. And then also building in this dialogue here from the start is where you set your expectations for the vendor. And so then this way they are held to that from the beginning and are not surprised by it once contracting comes along or anything like that. One last thing for for now is at least to build in, if you can, opportunities for demonstrations and simulations. This could be a whole workshop on its own, so I'm just going to leave it very high level. But again, descriptions are very similar sounding, so getting to actually like, road test something is a great way to see if it would fit into your workflow or improve your workflow or maybe not do what you're hoping to do. There are demonstrations where you kind of get to watch a canned proposal in a lot of ways, and things tend to work out very well in the proposal. You just kind of see the um, idealized workflow in that. But they're a lot lower cost than if you did a simulation where you would theoretically get to use your own data and actually stress test a few situations, get a really close walkthrough. So that takes a lot more time and is kind of higher risk for both you and the vendor. So that's something you'll have to build into the procurement. So then once you have finally released your RFP, take a breath again and relax for a second, stare at the sunset, since you'll have a long time of implementing your technology once you select something. So with that in mind, I mentioned before there is technical assistance all around the country. So there are different states that have technical assistance opportunities and public resources. And then also there are the technical assistance centers that I also mentioned. And so we have the CCAM-TAC team, the NCAT team from and there's National RTAP and Shared Use Mobility Center and ITS America as well, if you're, really into data standards and all of that fun stuff. So with that, that I know was kind of a high level overview. And so here's the tech staff at CTAA. So happy to answer any tech questions that you have for any of us. So feel free to reach out. And otherwise, I'm happy to answer questions that people have. And I saw a few already coming in. So let me
Those
just.
actually, those were me
Oh, okay.
sharing some resources you had sent me. But yeah, this is your moment, everyone, to ask questions.
I'm looking at the wrong window.
Don't be shy. You can raise your hand and I'll unmute you and you can ask aloud or you can type it into the chat.
There we go. As I mentioned, 8 easy steps. So I think everyone got it.
Nobody has questions. You did such an amazing job, but everyone's questions are all answered.
Or everyone's like useless.
Or wake up, everyone.
Yeah.
Hi, good afternoon, good morning, depending on
Hello.
which coast or where you are. Sean Reese, Illinois DOT.
Hey,
Quick
Sean.
question on the annual maintenance fee. If there's room in the grant, can that be built in and capitalized to cover 1 or 2 years of the maintenance fee? And how are you seeing, if so, how are you seeing that structured in the procurement documents?
Is this for ICAM specifically or
Yes.
okay. So I can't speak specifically to ICAM. I don't know, Jane, if you know um on this one.
You got to ask that one more time. I was kind of
Yeah.
zoning because I thought this is an Andrew question.
So once you've procured, once you are ready to install, you've gone through the procurement and there's this annual maintenance fee that comes along
Oh,
for keeping the system. How can you capitalize that and include that as a part of the grant as a capital item and include that in the procurement process? Like how do you add that in your procurement?
I am sure that you can. I can't tell you how to do that, but as long as you're in that pro in your pilot project, you should be able to do that. But I bet Steve got a better answer for you.
Great question, and it has to be written in your price sheet that they respond to, that you want to pay for it and you want the first couple of years up front included in the price. You can't, I don't think you can do the whole 5 years, but you can get a few years out of it. But after those years have expired, then it becomes operating.
Yeah, thank you.
Great question. Andrew, I'm not sure if you answered this, but how could transit agencies ensure that the new technology integrates with what they already have in their system?
open standards. So I would say ensure is not possible, but at the very least, you can start pushing for your new technologies to be more likely to talk to other ones. And so the idea is by using open standards. So a really common one is the General Transit Feed Specification, GTFS. And so this is one data standard that is the word standard is stuck in my head now, standardized. And so different companies know how to create this data in the same format for transit schedules. And so by doing that, if you have that information, then any type of vendor will know how to ingest the information and render it for the public, or they'll know how to kind of ship that information to other platforms. Um, so the idea here is that the more standards like these that exist, the more the information can easily flow across different vendors. And then you are at lower risk of kind of losing that information um, later if you switch vendors.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And then how could smaller agencies, and I know particularly our rural community grant programs, a lot of smaller agencies, how can they stay current with this rapidly evolving technology trends
Ooh.
when they don't have money to dedicate a staff person to IT? Got
Yeah.
suggestions, ideas on that?
It's tough. It's part of my job and it's hard to do. So I understand the pain as far as trying to keep up with that. I think your best bet is to, as much as possible, talk to your peers or kind of up at the state level if anyone is aware of what's going on around the industry. That's kind of the best way to, most immediate way to at least get kind of a sounding board on who's out there, who's working, or who works well with people in your area or anything like that. There are attempts around the country to have I guess, a kind of state level database of who is using what vendor across all kinds of categories, but that has not, that's still in the very early days, but I think that would be a cool thing to see. I would love to see how that evolves over time. And I think that would be in the future a good way to see who is actively a vendor for whom and therefore what do they do. And so and then also if you get opportunity, if it's hard to know what's spam and phishing versus what's a real vendor reaching out, but if you do get offers from vendors for demos, might as well see what especially if you're not in an active procurement, see what people have to put out there because that could be wary and keep an eye or and ask lots of questions, but at the very least you can get a sense of what's out there. So but yeah, ask questions when you have the chance. And then also if you reach out to us, then we can kind of tell you what we're aware of as well.
Super, thanks. Al put something in the chat. Al, do you want to just pop on and just give a couple words about that?
Sure. I was actually just
No?
dropping off. I have another call that,
Oh, okay.
but yeah, if there's a recent Spotlight article that we released, really looking at the how and why of practitioner's guide to demand response transportation data specifications. And if anybody has any questions about that, feel free to reach out. But excited to share it. We just released it a couple weeks ago.
Excellent. Thank you, Al.
Thanks. And great presentation. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Anything else you want to talk about, Andrew?
No, I could go on forever. So I'll spare people, but I'm happy to answer any questions if people think of them later. And so I'll make sure my contact info is in that follow-up email that Gene sends out. So if you have any tech questions, then I'm happy to walk through them with you.
Excellent. I have, well, I almost forgot, the evaluation, and I gotta dig it up. It's here somewhere. There we go. I really appreciate people logging in. On the evaluation that I'm sticking in the chat right now, there's an opportunity to put topics of other information or things that you'd like to learn more about. And love to hear that so that we can provide you with what you want and not just what we want. So thank you all for attending. And as you think of things as they come up, some of you maybe aren't asking questions because sometimes it's kind of in the weeds and it's specific to your agency. Just reach out and we can help you on email or we can set up a call. So thank you, Andrew, for sharing your expertise and everyone for logging in.
All right. Thank you all for being here and for doing what you do.
Have a great day. Bye.